I had a friend ask me, "You're talking on growing spiritually in a world with COVID and gun violence? Why?" I said, "Because that's what's going on in the world." I like us to deal with what's happening in the world, you know. Church isn't a place you go to hide from the world. It's not a place you come to find comfort and then you just go out into the world and just be whatever and deal with whatever. I see unity as a place where we can learn tools to bring it into our world, to live the way Spirit would have us live in the world. And people, my observation is, people are still worried about COVID. I mean, one of the interesting things about the whole thing is there's so much different information out there, right? There you get on the subway train or wherever, and there are people wearing masks, and there are people not wearing masks. You know, it's a strange situation. But there are people who their lives are being controlled by fears of getting COVID or passing it on to other people. It's still going on. And we read the headlines and you see that there's outbreaks in China and it's a problem in China, and you learn that now there's a couple of other strains of Omicron, and there's the monkey virus and this virus and the giraffe virus and I made up the giraffe virus, but there should be. One of the things Jesus said is there are rumors of war. There are wars, there'll always be wars, and there'll always be rumors of wars. Now, certainly we could take that literally and go, yep, there's still wars, there's still rumors of wars going on in the world around us. Metaphorically, you could say, yeah, there's always going to be viruses, there's always going to be rumors of viruses, there's always going to be other things happening in the world, always going to be something, right? And I don't think that's negative to say that. I think that's just the way the world is. It's made up like that. It's not meant to just all be pleasant and, I don't think. It's just like a movie. You ever go to a movie where everything that happens is just nice and harmonious and... No, you don't go to movies like that. Even the animated movies for kids, there's always some kind of conflict going on and something happening. So the key, I think, is expressed in Jesus. He said, in the world you'll have tribulation, but be of good cheer, I've overcome the world, right? And in the last few weeks, my goodness, the gun violence has been incredible, and it's just been going on and on for the last several years. Those of us who've been on the planet for more than 20 years, we're like, wow, it really is a problem. It's a problem. And now people are afraid, there's the real problem is this, and this is not a political talk, we're talking about spiritual growth. Spiritual growth, I would say, is if your guidance is to protest, if your guidance is to lobby for a change in laws, if your guidance is to become a politician to change laws or to educate people about gun violence, then I say go to it. Get, all for it. So I don't want you to think that I'm advocating being passive. Because when you're spiritual, you're going to be busy. You're going to be doing stuff. But we're talking about spiritual growth here today. And I think the only thing I have to say in this forum is regarding the discussion about gun violence, I think it's important that people look for what is the common denominator. What is our common purpose, right? And I would say our common purpose is we want people to be safe. And we want we want to be able to go into public places and feel comfortable and safe, right? That's certainly one common purpose. No matter what you think about gun laws, you've got to embrace. You want your loved ones to be safe, right? So I think it's important. And that's a spiritual quality, to look for oneness, to look for a common purpose, and then to have the patience and the willingness to hear what the other person has to say, rather than, I know I'm right and you need to change. Isn't that what happens in relationships a lot of times? I'm right, you're wrong, you need to change. As opposed to, and how well does that work usually? We human beings tend to think we're the ones that are right and everybody else is wrong. But it takes real patience and love to want to hear what the other side has to say, so that we can come back to our shared purpose and find a solution that works. So that's my little piece on that part. So how do we grow spiritually in a world where there is COVID and there is gun violence? I mean, if you're a human being, it touches you on some level, right? It's when you hear the news of these things, it can be very distressing and sad and touch you on a deep level. And people get angry, and they feel sad, and they feel angry, and they want to do something. Well, that's natural. The shortest sentence in the Bible is Jesus wept, right? His friend Lazarus had died. He went to where the family and friends were, and people were sad, and they were crying, and Jesus wept. He felt, that's what you call sympathy. I think it's important that we distinguish between sympathy and empathy and compassion. Sympathy is where you're like, I know how you feel. I feel sad. I feel angry. It's a bad situation, and so on. That's called sympathy. But compassion moves beyond that. Compassion is, I've been there, and this is how you get through it. I've been through it. I've lived through it. This is how you get through it. Because sometimes if you get caught into sympathy, you're in the same ditch as everybody else. Now, who's going to help you out of the ditch? Compassion is you've grown through the experience, and now you can help somebody else move through it. That's what Jesus did. Jesus wept, he was sad, and then what happened? He resurrected Lazarus. He brought him back to life. As mind-boggling as that is to us, but he knew there were principles and laws that are on a higher level, just like 200 years ago, if you flashed a cell phone or a smartphone to someone, they would have gone, oh my God, what is that? That's crazy. So he operated on higher levels. He resurrected Lazarus. He felt sympathy with the people. He was touched by the death and their sadness because he had a human body and emotions and a mind. But he was also aware of his identity. And that's our first main point. And how do we grow spiritually in this time? It's to know our spiritual identity. Jesus was touched in his humanness, but he knew his spiritual identity. He didn't let his humanness drag him down and keep him sad and keep him angry and keep him frustrated and keep him worried. It didn't control him. Right? And that's what I think the point is here, is not to let COVID, not to let gun violence control us and make us afraid and dictate how we live our life. Doesn't mean that we're not cautious. It doesn't mean you're not alert or present. Doesn't mean you do stupid stuff. But it means that you're following your guidance. You're living your life. Jesus said, I've come that you may have life and have it abundantly. Have it abundantly. So that's what we're talking about. So Jesus knew his spiritual identity. He felt his sadness, and then he resurrected Lazarus. And Lazarus came forth. He knew Lazarus was not dead. He knew Lazarus, as a spiritual being, was whole and well. He knew Lazarus' purpose was not done yet, and that it was part of his purpose, Jesus' purpose, to bring him back. So how do we do that? How do we know our true identity? How are we a human being and a divine being? How do we do that? Because that's a key. Because if you think about it, I mean, one of the deepest fears, psychologists tell us, it's the root of all fears, is the fear of death. It's the fear of death. And one of the creatures that humans fear the most is what? A shark. Yeah, sharks. Why? Well, like COVID, you never know where it is, how you're going to get it, what's going to happen. Gun violence, you don't know where or when. When you're in the ocean, dun-dun, 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 dun-dun. You don't know where or when, right? It's the fear of the unknown, right? It's fear of unknown. So we as human beings and spiritual beings, we got to learn to be comfortable being in the now, knowing that we're guided, we're in the right place all the time, that Spirit is guiding us, and that we are spiritual beings. We are consciousness. And that's something most people don't know. Most people are not aware that they are consciousness. They're not their thoughts, they're not their emotions, they're not their bodies, they are consciousness. You that's in there. You that's aware. I'm aware that I'm aware. Are you aware that you're aware? Some people are like, huh? I don't know what you're talking about. Are you aware that you're aware? Somebody used an example of it's like a child playing with a toy. And the mother's watching the child play with a toy. The child playing with the toy is your mind and your emotions. The mother watching the child play with a toy is consciousness. Right? So you are consciousness. Spirit, the sages tell us you're eternal. You're an eternal being. But here's the problem. This is where COVID, gun violence, anything can really cause us to be anxious, to be fearful, to be looking over our shoulder, to avoid different things and to live in a small box. It's because, as the Buddhists tell us, your mind is meant to, we have the outer world, we have our thoughts, we have our emotions. The outer world is meant to occur, and it has nice things and it has unpleasant things. You know, it has scary things, it has pleasant things, right? I mean, you go into safari and you see a lion or you see a tiger, like, whoa, that's scary. That's scary. It's meant to be scary. They got fangs, they got claws, they're powerful. They're meant to be scary. And that's okay. You feel it, but it's meant to be felt for an instant. And then it goes through you. But instead of feeling it and letting it go through us, we push it away. Oh, I don't want to feel that. We push it away. And what's the saying? What you resist persists. We think, oh, it dissipated. I don't want to feel sad. Push it away. Oh, it dissipated. Nope, it stayed stuck in your consciousness. It stayed stuck. And we've done that with good things too, pleasant things. Oh, I like the sunrise. I love a hug. I love whatever it is. And we cling to it. And so then we try to live our life creating only the things that we like and avoiding the things that we don't like. Oh, I avoid any show with tigers on it. I try to avoid zoos because I don't want to see a tiger. I try to avoid any kind of show or whatever because I don't like tigers, right? We are letting our stuff control our life. And we only want pleasant things. You know, I like this, I don't like that. I don't like it when it rains, I only like sunshine. You know, we want to, and that's not how it works, is it? So here's the thing. If we've stuffed in our side, and we all have. How do I know we've all done that? How do we know we've all stuffed and resisted stuff? Are you continually in a flow of joy, of happiness, of peace, of calmness, of wisdom, of ecstasy? The masters tell us that you're created in the image of that, Satchidananda, ever conscious eternal joy. That's our true nature. If we're not centered in that all the time, enjoying every moment of our life, even when it's scary. Oh, a tiger, and then you feel the fear and it flows right through you. And now, oh, look, a giraffe, oh, wow. If we're not in that state all the time, why not? Because we're blocking it. We've got stuff inside of us that we have held on to. The Buddhists call it clinging to the stuff we like, or pushing away the stuff we don't like. We're blocking it. And so when something happens out in the outer world, and we've repressed fears, we've resisted sadness and grief, now it's like, oh, I can't deal with that. Now it's not just the outer stuff, it's what it touches inside of us that we've never dealt with. Make sense? Yes. That's how you can find someone who never dealt with the grief of their parent or friend who died, or even a pet, never dealt with little Sparky dying when they were 10 or whatever it is. And so now someone dies and they've got a whole Pandora's box of grief or fear or whatever that they've been holding down. So no wonder people walk around controlled by fears of COVID, fears of going out because of gun violence, and fears of this or that, because they're trying to navigate all the stuff they have inside, and they're trying to avoid the things that touch that stuff, that stir it up. So how do we grow in the world spiritually? We start to be open to allow life to come in, to touch us deeply and to flow right through us. Each moment can be a new moment. See? But that's not how we tend to live. We tend to hold on to stuff. Somebody divorces a guy named Fred, and now every time they hear the name Fred, oh, I hate Fred. I don't like the name Fred. Hey, you want to go on a date with a surprise date? It's a guy named Fred. Oh no, I don't want to go on that date. They got an official divorce, but they never divorced the guy. They're still carrying it around inside of them. So, if you got fears inside and all this stuff inside, then yeah, stuff that happens in the world will stir it up. So how do you grow spiritually? You can grow spiritually with everything. So growing spiritually isn't just when I read my spiritual book. It's not when I just listen to a lecture or read something or watch a video. It's not just when I meditate. It's every little thing that happens in our life. Every little thing. I mean every little thing that happens in our life. Turn to your neighbor and say, it's every little thing that happens in your life. Go ahead. It's every little thing that happens in your life, that you do in your life. Every little thing. When somebody cuts in front of you going through the gate to the subway, or sits in your seat before you, or somebody's late or something's late, or somebody says or does something, that is your opportunity to grow spiritually. Because what are you going to do? It's going to stir up stuff inside of you that most likely is a replay of something that happened in your past. And now you have an opportunity to either jump in the fire and get angry or get sad or get worried or fearful, or you can surrender. Take a deep breath, relax, and just let it flow through you, because that's what will happen. It's like clouds in the sky, they move through the sky. You don't resist it. Jesus said, resist not evil. Resist not evil. You relax and you let it flow through you. See, because right now, in this moment, I'm guessing everything's okay in your life. I mean, in this moment. If your attention is right here, right now, in this moment, you're okay. You're at peace, right? If you're here now, because fear is looking toward the future, right? Fear is in the future. If you're on the edge of a cliff and you're totally present, you're at peace. But if you're thinking about, oh my God, I could fall off this cliff, now you're in fear. Fear is in the future. I was watching this great series recently. It's called The Last Dance, about the Chicago Bulls and Michael Jordan in the 90s. Pretty amazing. And one of the writers was saying Michael Jordan is like a Zen master. You know, he doesn't think about the future. You ask him, aren't you worried about whether you're going to make the shot or not? He's like, no, why would I think about the shot? How am I going to know whether I make it or not until I shoot it? Living in the now, living in the present. So, learning to be here now. I mean, putting it in perspective. I mean, what are the statistics of being involved in a gun incident? I'm guessing very, 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 very low. Doesn't mean we're not going to take action and change it, because it's a terrible thing for the people it happened to, obviously. It's terribly sad. It's a horrible thing that something needs to be done, right? But the ultimate solution as a spiritual teacher is, if everybody was walking around unblocked, in tune with love, in tune with joy, in tune with the way we are created as spiritual beings, there would never be gun violence, right? There would never be a problem. The deeper problem is what's not happening inside of people, and it's the lack of awareness of who we are as spiritual beings. That's the real problem. It's mental illness, you know, and hatred is a mental illness. If you're created in the image and likeness of God, and that's our true nature, if you're filled with hate, mental illness. We're not meant to be filled with hate. So if we were all in tune, there wouldn't be no problem. That's why we have this, right? That's why we're on a spiritual journey. Because we know there's more. There's more joy, there's more love, there's more life. And the key is what we're doing inside. How are we dealing with every single thing that happens in our life? That's an opportunity for us to grow spiritually. So let's talk just briefly about something that many of us probably never really faced in our life, because a lot of people in the West never look at it. Maybe world over now. And that is death. We're all going to die. Now, according to the sages, you in there, your consciousness isn't going to die, but this body is. A body's going to die. It's going to go. And if we've been avoiding that, if we were like, I don't want to see that, I don't want to face that. You know, we had a relative or a grandparent die or a friend die or a dog die, and we're like, oh no, I don't want to even think about it. I don't want to feel sad. I don't want to think about death. I don't want to deal with it. Well, guess what? You're carrying a time bomb around there. You're carrying what this Buddhists call a samskara. It's important that we face it, face the facts. Jack, face the facts. And look at it. Because I think if we're afraid of death, well, my gosh, people have died of COVID. Millions of people have died from COVID. And people die in acts of gun violence. So if fear of death is there, we've never really faced it, well, we're going to really be triggered, aren't we? We're going to really be triggered. Some people live like you're going to get out of here alive. No. Your body's going to stop functioning at some point. It's going to stop functioning. And I find it's helpful to look at, all right, so what is death? What does that mean? How should I look at it? Some people look at it as exciting. Oh my gosh, I've got a once-in-a-lifetime experience. I'm going to die. What's going to happen? What's going to happen? I always love what Socrates said. He was a great philosopher in ancient Greece, and he taught ideas that really pushed the buttons of the people around him, so much so that they wanted to kill him. In fact, they sentenced him to death, and he had to drink hemlock, a poison. And someone asked him, said, aren't you, how come you're so calm? Why are you so peaceful, Socrates? You're going to be dying. And I love what Socrates said. He said, here's how I look at it. Either when I die, there's going to be all the glories of heaven that we've heard about in our theology, whatever he called it, and it's going to be beautiful and amazing, or there's going to be nothing, and I'll be at peace forever. No more struggle, no more suffering. It's not like you die and then you're like, oh, wait a minute, there's nothing here. Oh, this is terrible. No, once you're gone, that's it. That's it. Your last breath, that's it. No more struggle, no more suffering. There's nothing. So I always loved what Socrates had to say, and I think that's a bold way to look at it. Now, we have saints and sages who tell us that you continue on. You continue on. Not your body, but you in there. You in there. So looking at it can really free us. I mean, it has helped me to think about, all right, what if I got COVID? All right, what if I ended up in the hospital? Some people go, oh, that's negative. Don't think about that. Well, I think if you face it head on and you look at it, now you don't have to let it dominate your thoughts. I looked at it, I said, well, what happened if I would die from COVID? So, okay. Well, what Socrates said, I either go and continue on or there's no more suffering at all otherwise. Okay, I can live with that if that's the right word. What if I was involved in something like gun violence? What if something like that happened? I know sometimes in spirituality that sounds like a negative thing to talk about. Don't even open to the possibility, and I agree with that. I agree with that. But I think it can be helpful to face it head on. What if that were the case? What if that did happen? All right, same answer. Same answer. Okay? I would move on, Same answer. It's learning to accept death. It's learning to realize it's coming at some point. So, that being said, what have we said? We've said everything can be an opportunity for us to grow spiritually. We didn't say be passive. Let me go back to that again, because I know that's sometimes all people hear. If you're guided to protest, if you're guided to change the laws, if you're guided to do something about it, which something needs to happen, then by all means do that. We're not talking about passivity. We're talking about growing spiritually. Every part of our life can be an opportunity to grow spiritually. When something happens and you get triggered, it's not about the people or the thing that happened. It's about what's coming up for you. So can you be present to it? Can you relax around it? Can you let it pass through you? Because that's the key to your spiritual growth. It's not avoiding it. It's not going off to an ashram. It's not meditating, although that can help. Meditation can help you have this awareness. But there are people who meditate and then they go out in life and they act like a lunatic. Because they're not really meditating, probably. They're doing all kinds of stuff with their mind. Meditation can help you develop that awareness. Right? So, and then facing death and recognizing everybody's going to die. We're all dying. Maybe we can look at it as an exciting once-in-a-lifetime experience. I'm excited to see what's going to happen. Gee, I get one chance at this, one opportunity. I'm kind of interested to see what's going to happen. And then, that being said, facing the worst, then keep your mind as much as you can. If you're doing this work and you're open and you're being present in the seat of self, who you are is on a higher vibration than your thoughts, than your feelings, and then what happens in the world. Who you are as a spiritual being is on a higher energy level, a vibration, than anything happening in the world. It's on a higher vibration than your thoughts and than your emotions. So when you stay rooted in that place, you're going to be in the right place at the right time, whatever that means. Whatever that means. You're going to be in the right place at the right time. Does that mean it's always going to be daisies and butterflies and birds singing? No. Because after all, if you're a spiritual being, it's not all about you. It's about making a difference. It's about radiating our light in the world. And sometimes you find yourself in difficult situations so you can be a light in that world. Viktor Frankl, who wrote Man's Search for Meaning, a classic book. One of the things, he survived the concentration camp, and he used it to grow spiritually. He looked at the situation, and talk about hell on earth. He looked at the situation, he thought, how can I use what's happening here to help people when I get out of it? And he developed logotherapy, which has helped countless people deal with their life in a better way. He said the best human beings among us didn't survive those camps. He said a lot of the, well, maybe I exaggerated what he said. He at least said a lot of the best among us didn't survive those camps. Why? Because they were giving their food away. Why? Because they were doing stuff to help other people and weren't afraid of death. They weren't afraid of, they weren't in a survival mode. They were in a, how can I let my light shine mode. Think about Jesus. Jesus was a very high vibration being. He went through hell. He went through hell. Now, that's not forever. Don't get scared. That doesn't mean if you're spiritual, you're going to have to go through that. But he really didn't go through hell. His body went through hell, but he was, how could you be on the cross and go, Father, forgive them, for they know not what they do? How could you be centered in such love and such a time? Well, that's because he had done the spiritual work that we're talking about here today. He was a clear instrument. He was a being of love and light. He knew it. He was in tune with it all the time. And so that he got put in situations that were difficult, but it didn't affect who he was inside. And he was able to be a light toward others. He wasn't living in a little box of fear. He wasn't living in a little box of resentment. He wasn't living in a little box of, oh, this happened to me back when so-and-so, and I'm so upset about it. That's how most people live, Stuff happens to them. Stuff happens in the outer world. It stirs it up, and now they're back in it again. Well, I don't know about you, but I want to be free of that stuff. I want to be free of that stuff. So, staying in that witness state, seeking to let stuff flow through you will keep you on a very high vibration. And if you want to do things like the prayer for protection to help you, see, the prayer for protection, the light of God surrounds us, the love of God enfolds us. You can say it with me. The power of God protects us, the presence of God watches over us. Wherever we are, God is, and all is well. We say this at the end of the service. That doesn't make God surround and enfold you. That doesn't make God do anything for you. What it does is it opens you up to the reality. It gets you out of your stuff. It gets you out of your stuff enough to open up to what's real. What's real is you got 33 trillion cells taking care of your body all the time. What's real is the reality's popping in and out of the quantum field of light every single moment. You're being supported and protected every single moment in life. The prayer for protection or any prayer that you say isn't making God do anything for you. It's making you open up and get beyond yourself to the reality of the presence, which takes you on a high vibration. It attunes you to a high vibratory rate where you're safe. Your spirit is always safe. Dr. Wayne Dyer wrote a book years ago called There's a Spiritual Solution for Every Problem. And he talks about everything is at a different vibratory rate. Problems are at a low vibratory rate. Solutions are at a high vibratory rate, a high energy rate. And I'll close with this. He tells a story about one time he saw a group of guys. It was like a gang fight or something about to happen. And he said that he went over and he started to sing in his mind. I'm not sure he said it aloud. Surely the presence of the Lord is in this place. I can feel his mighty power. And he just sort of walked around these people with this song in his mind. And he said that the energy of that group just sort of dissolved. The hostility dissolved. Why? Because he was lifting himself to a high vibration, an energy where there is love and light and peace and joy. And so I say that's what we want to do in a time of COVID or gun violence, is to keep ourselves in that state of witness consciousness, to keep our state in that high energy vibration, to not be afraid of death, not be afraid of what's inside of us or what's going to hit our stuff, but let it flow through us, and then learning to live more in the present, being here now, being present now, is how we can live in the world, but not of it. To be at peace, to be in joy, to be in love, and to take whatever action we're guided to take. Not to act out of fear or worry or anxiety, but to act out of our guidance, our direction. What is ours here to do? Because we, as the Bible says, perfect love casts out all fear. Perfect love casts out all fear. When you're on that high vibration, you are in that love. And in that love, there is no fear. Let's get still for a moment. We acknowledge this presence and activity, that we are truly spiritual beings. And we, as spiritual beings, we vibrate at this energy of love and joy and peace. And we allow this energy of love and joy and peace to flow through and as us, to lift up our family, our friends, to lift up the people around us. As we're making this effort to be conscious, to let stuff flow through us, we are operating at a higher frequency. That is a blessing to others. And from this awareness of our light being, our spiritual essence, we let that love and that peace radiate to all those affected by gun violence. We let this love and peace radiate to all those affected by COVID. We send forth love to everyone, to the souls that have been impacted and have moved on to the other dimension because of these things. We send them love and light and peace and comfort on their eternal journey. And we thank you, Spirit, for your guidance and direction for each of us to help bring forth greater harmony, greater love, greater peace, greater well-being on earth as it is in heaven. And so it is. Amen.